Well, I hope you enjoyed that story about Walter. He had some important lessons to teach us. One that we talked about was Lent and how that reminds us about Easter time and Jesus' gift to us at Easter, his life. Another lesson we can learn from Walter is a science lesson. And anytime we're learning about science, we're learning about God the Creator and some of the mysteries of the world around us. I love science, and there's a science lesson that we can get from the story of Walter the Baker as well. It's about making bread and what's involved in that. I also asked you to find out a little bit about yeast and what happens when yeast causes bread to rise. We're going to talk about that now. Well, did you know that yeast is actually alive? Yeah. When you buy it in a bottle or in a package, it just looks like little round circles, and they certainly don't look alive. But yeast is actually a single-celled organism. It's not alive like an animal that we would see moving around, but it's a single-celled organism, and it likes to eat sugar. Now, when yeast is combined with sugar, or when sugar is added to yeast and water, yeast gives off a gas, and that gas is called carbon dioxide. It also gives off another gas called ethanol, and that's alcohol. Both carbon dioxide and ethanol, when they are released, they create bubbles. So when we combine the yeast and the sugar and the flour and the water, the gas bubbles cause all of that to puff up and to rise. And the more it rises, the more carbon dioxide is let off, and the more ethanol, the gases, come out and make the whole mass of the flour and the water puff up bigger and bigger. And when it's needed, when the baker needs all of those things together, combines them and presses them with his hands, folding it over top of each other and punching it, that causes the strands of the dough to get tighter and tighter. So the gas bubbles can't just escape, they're inside the dough, and that's what's puffing the dough up and making it rise bigger and bigger. And when you put it in the oven and it gets warmed up, or when you put it in front of heat, the reason the dough rises or gets bigger is because the heat also makes more carbon dioxide gas come out and puff the bread up even more. So again, the yeast eats the sugar and gives off carbon dioxide gas, which makes the dough rise higher and higher. So that's what happens when yeast is combined with sugar, water, and flour. And that's how we get a loaf of bread, how it goes from little pieces of yeast in a sticky mess when we add the flour and sugar and water, to a lovely loaf of bread that smells so nice when it's baking. What makes it rise up? The carbon dioxide gas and the ethanol gas that's coming out. And what does the yeast eat? It eats sugar. So the flour, the sugar, and the yeast, and kneading it together makes it tough and stick together. The gas makes it rise, and then the heat cooks the bread and makes it rise even more. Then we get that lovely loaf of bread that's crispy and warm, and we can melt butter on and put jam on. So there's some science from Walter the Baker as well. Another science lesson that we talked about last week was about amphibians. Well, amphibians, like our friends frog and toad, live in the pond. Another friend that we can find in the pond is a turtle. And I also asked you to find out a little bit about turtles, and I gave you a turtle craft and I gave you a turtle book to make. So we're going to talk a little bit more about turtles today. Turtles are from the family called reptiles. Frogs are from the family called amphibians. They do have some similarities. That means they're alike in some ways, and they're also different in some ways. Reptiles and amphibians both lay eggs. They both are vertebrates. That means animals in the reptile family and animals in the amphibian family both have backbones. We talked about frogs being cold-blooded. That means they have to warm up in the sun and cool down in the water. Well, turtles are also cold-blooded. If they want to get warm, they have to climb onto a rock and bask in the sun. If they get hot, they need to go back into the pond. Both frogs and turtles have lungs, and they both hibernate in the mud in the wintertime. So there's some things that about them are the same. Now, turtles' eggs have hard shells. Frogs' eggs have soft shells. Turtles lay their eggs on the shore in the land. Frogs lay their eggs in the water. Frogs have soft, moist skin, but turtles, as we know, have a hard, scaly shell. And all reptiles, animals in the reptile family, have scales. More about turtles, and you see if you can find out, if you found out some of these facts about turtles as well when you're studying about them at home. They live for a very long time. Some of them can even live 100 years. They are intelligent. They have very good eyesight. They have shells to protect them. And did you know that the female shell is a little bit different from the male shell? There's a top to the shell and a bottom to the shell. Well, you can tell whether it's a male or a female by picking them up and looking at the bottom shell. In females, the bottom shell curves down. We call that convex. It curves down like this. But the male shell curves up. So there's a difference in the shape of the bottom of the shell for the male and the female. Some turtles are carnivores. We've talked about what carnivores are before. That means they eat meat, like they might eat bugs or little animals in the pond. Some turtles are herbivores. And what's an herbivore? An herbivore eats plants. So some turtles eat only plants. Some turtles eat only meat. And some turtles that eat meat are snapping turtles and sea turtles. So those are great big turtles that you might find out in the middle of the ocean. Snapping turtles don't often come up onto the land, but the great big sea turtles are out in the ocean. And smaller turtles usually eat smaller things like bugs, but tortoises, which are a little bit different than turtles, but they're from the same family, they eat only plants. So tortoises are herbivores. They don't eat any meat or bugs or small animals. They just eat plants. Tortoises are herbivores, and a lot of turtles are carnivores, meat eaters. Well, those are a few facts about turtles for you. And now I've got a little more from our Cat in the Hat story about pond life. We learned about pollywogs and frogs from Cat in the Hat, and now we're going to learn a little bit about turtles. Turtle buries her eggs in the springtime on the banks of the pond, just above the pond in the land there. You can see that. She eats bugs from the pond. It's her favorite thing. Most turtles bask in the heat of the sun. If you look on the rocks, I think you'll see one. And there he is, basking in the sun. Your mother is calling. It's lunchtime, I see. Tell me, what kind of pond life would you rather be? Of all that I've shown you, fish, frog, or turtle, I tell you right now, I'd rather be a pollywog. And remember who the pollywog is. The pollywog is another name for a tadpole, and that's the baby that turns into the frog. So there's all kinds of animals in the pond, and we didn't read about all of them, but we learned especially about the frogs and the turtles. And I have another book about turtles for you. It's called All About Turtles. Have you ever wondered about turtles? How many kinds of turtles are there? Why do turtles have shells? What do turtles eat? How old can turtles live to be? This book answers all these questions and more. It's all about turtles. Turtles are reptiles with shells. We talked about that. Like all reptiles, turtles cannot regulate their own body temperature. We have a thermostat inside that warms us up when we're cold and cools us down when we're hot. But amphibians do not have that. They're cold-blooded, and reptiles do not have a thermostat inside their body that warms them up and cools them down. They have to find a sunny spot, like a rock, underneath the sun. And when they are too hot, then they climb back into the water. And there's the turtle on the rock, and you can see the water's close by. He can hop to when he gets too warm. They cool themselves by finding shade, or if they're water turtles, they climb into the water. Turtles that live in northern climates burrow into the mud and hibernate in the wintertime. Turtles that live in the sea migrate in winter from colder to warmer areas. So some turtles hibernate in the mud during the wintertime, and some of them just migrate or move to a warmer area, warmer water. There are more than 200 different types of turtles in the whole world. There's freshwater turtles, turtles that live in freshwater, seawater turtles, turtles that live in seawater or saltwater, and land-dwelling turtles, turtles that don't live in water but stay on the land. Freshwater, saltwater, and land. And of those three types, there's 200 different kinds of turtles. And here's a picture of a whole bunch of different kinds of turtles. Some of them are the painted turtle, the spotted turtle, the box turtle, the desert tortoise, soft-shell turtle, snapping turtle, leatherback turtle. So we can see there's all kinds of different turtles. God is a master artist. He creates so many different types of interesting animals and so many different types of interesting turtles. These two pages show the top and the bottom of the turtle. So we can see the top of the shell and the bottom of the shell. The top of the shell has different hexagonal shapes that are called plates. All these different shapes are on top, the different sections are called plates. And when you're making your own turtle craft, you're going to cut some pieces of paper out in oval shapes to make the plates on the top of the turtle shell. And this part here is the bottom of the shell. Remember, we can tell if a turtle is a male or a female, a boy or a girl, by whether the bottom curves up or curves down. The huge shell of a sea turtle is actually thin and lightweight in proportion to the turtle's heavy body. The large front flippers and muscular neck of the sea turtle cannot be drawn inside the shell. So we know that turtles that live on land or in the pond, the smaller ones, they can draw their head in. But the sea turtle has flippers, so he can swim in the water, and he cannot draw those inside his shell. Turtles are intelligent. That means they're smart. And they're always alert, looking for prey that might want to hurt them. Turtles also have excellent eyesight. They can detect even the slightest movement of distant objects. Often they will see you before you see them. They also have a keen sense of smell, so they can smell well, they can see well. That's going to help them look out for predators and also help them look out for their prey. Turtles don't have ears that we can see. It is not known if turtles can actually hear sounds or only sense the sounds as vibrations on the ground. We don't know if they can actually hear the sounds or if they just feel them on the ground. When it comes to touch, turtles are very sensitive. They can feel things very well. A turtle feels the world with its feet. We feel the world mostly with our fingers. Well, turtles feel the world with their feet. A turtle shell also has nerves inside it. So that hard shell has nerves that let it feel things. Very young turtles eat mostly insects. As they grow larger, they eat plants and insects, as well as worms and some fish. So when they're little, they are mostly herbivores, eating just plants. But when they get older, they become herbivores and carnivores. They eat meat as well as bugs. That's called an omnivore. Sea turtles will eat seaweed, crabs, clams, oysters, and other fish, even jellyfish. Snapping turtles can eat anything that they can catch, from fish to ducks, because they have that part of them that can snap their prey. The least predatory of all the turtles, that means the most peaceful ones, are the tortoises. They're very peaceful and they only eat plants. They're just herbivores. They're shy. And the only tortoises that live in the United States are called gopher tortoises. Gopher tortoises share their homes with other animals, including rattlesnakes. Whenever you see a gopher tortoise, you must take care and watch all around. The tortoise could have a rattlesnake for a roommate. Oh my goodness. All turtles reproduce in the same way. That means they have babies in the same way. Sometime after mating with the male, the female turtle digs a nest hole and she deposits or puts her eggs in them. We said that turtles lay eggs, and the number of eggs she lays could be from 100 to 130. That's a lot of eggs. After laying her eggs, the turtle covers the nest hole with soil, and then she abandons it. That means she leaves it. She leaves the babies all by themselves to hatch by themselves. The sun-warm earth keeps the eggs warm so that they can hatch, not the mother. Not all turtles get a chance to develop fully. Sometimes raccoons and other predators eat the eggs before the baby turtles can come out. But because there's so many eggs that are laid, 100 to 130, some of them do survive. And they try to get to the water as quickly as they can so they're not eaten by birds that are along the shore. If they're land-loving turtles, they try to hurry as quickly as they can to brush or woodland, where they can hide in the leaves or the litter on the ground. With only their shells to protect them, baby turtles have been making the dangerous journey from the nest hole to the water or the bushes for a long, long time, since the days of the dinosaurs. They've been around since dinosaurs. Turtles live long lives, some of them as long as 100 years old. Some of them more than 100. But even a baby day-old turtle knows how to make its way to where it's going to live. They take care of themselves because their mom leaves them after she lays the eggs. Well, I hope you've been able to find out some interesting facts about turtles. And what family are they part of? The reptile family. Maybe you can talk with Mom and Dad about as many facts as you can find out about turtles. And that's all for today. Enjoy the sunshine.